All right, y'all. I'm so excited to have you guys here. Thank you all for making time today. Dive into some really important content. So, wanted to look through some of these big wins real quick. Jeremy, saw that you got some time with Brandon and Sean yesterday at the Dallas Build Expo. They both said that they were super pumped to see you and get some time with you, man. So, thanks for making that time and making it a priority. So, Brad Moore's heading to West Texas for a wedding and an off-road trip in the Bronco, man. I might need to catch a flight out there with you. That sounds amazing. Let's see. Nathan Anderson went to the Savannah Bananas baseball game. I love it. Hey, if y'all have not heard of the Savannah Bananas, by the way, I don't even know how to describe it. It is a circus with sports going on, and it is absolutely incredible. So, Nathan, love that you got over there. It's God, it's a blast. So, well, hey, let me get rolling today. I'm so excited that y'all are here. I'll make sure that we use every single second of your time to the best of my ability. If I haven't met you yet, my name's Thomas Joyner. I'm the director of coaching here at Business on Purpose. I am starting my 5th year with BOP, which is so crazy to think about. It's always kind of funny when I look back. I resigned from my last job to step in with BOP about the week before COVID hit. Perfect time for a career change. And so, anyways, it's been an absolute blast to be here, serve business owners like you, and come alongside to liberate them from chaos. So thank you guys for joining here. Hey, 2 things right up front. Would you commit the next 20 to 30 minutes to being completely undistracted? No texts, no emails, no YouTube videos playing in the background. You have bought this time. So lock in and take everything you can from it. Also, number 2 is you have questions, drop them in the chat window right here at the bottom, same place that you put your big wins in. I'm going to ask Jesse, who's kind of helping me run the back end of this thing, to combine them towards the end, and we will come back to them. But I know sometimes you think of that question, if you don't write it down and put it somewhere, it immediately leaves you. So drop it in there. We'll come back to it at the end. I'll have some time for Q&A. Before we get going, let me introduce my family real fast. This is my wife, Rebecca. Obviously, she is way out of my league. You can say it. I'm not embarrassed by it. She's way out of my league. My son, T, is 6 years old. He's in kindergarten. Our daughter, Nan, is 4. She's the one screaming at the camera, and she's amazing. And then our littlest one, Robbie, just turned 2. So life is fun. It's absolutely wide open and nuts right now, but just wouldn't change it for anything. It's just a lot of fun. So I don't know about you guys, but our family feels like it's kind of been stuck inside for much of the last month. Some sick kids, tons and tons of rain, funky weather that we really thought was behind us, you name it. And yet, with some of the cooler temps the last few days, we've really been able to take advantage of it. And we took a long family walk the other night, something that we used to do nightly in the midst of COVID, right? When there was nothing else to do other than go for a walk. And it was just getting back to some of these simple little things that make a difference. And so we were reminded of just how much life gives us, and just the sweet little moments in life, as we played I Spy walking through the neighborhood, and we raced each other to the next mailbox and played tag and all these silly little things. And I came home and immediately asked my wife, like, why do we forget to do the little things? Because we know deep down the little things make the biggest differences for our families and for small businesses. I was sitting in with a client a few weeks ago who really hasn't been coaching with me for very long. And I was asking them about what separates them from some of the bigger companies doing what they do. Well, not much anymore, they said, and they were a little embarrassed to say it. And so I kind of leaned in and asked them, hey, elaborate on that just a little bit. They started to prove my point. They said, well, when we first opened our business, it was this thought of, all right, let's be about superior customer service, and that superior customer service meeting the highest quality. We returned every phone call. We wrote handwritten thank yous to clients after big jobs. We spent extra time on the details and spent time as a team making sure every little thing was lined up. And as we've grown, what happens? Well, it feels like there's less and less time for all of that, and we've maybe just lost our way a little bit. Does any of that sound familiar to anybody? Well, I would imagine it probably does. That's the secret sauce of small business, right? Is it's the knowing the name of a client, or remembering a team member's birthday and that they're gluten-free. It's the handwritten note that shows up in your mailbox instead of some whitewashed thank you email with your name just inserted. Hey, Ben. Hey, John, whatever your name is. And you're like, they have no idea who I am. You know, it's actually answering your calls and getting a human on the line instead of a press 0 to talk to a customer representative. I was on the phone for hours the other day trying to talk to a gas company, and it was just driving me nuts. I couldn't get a human on the phone. Maybe it's having a weekly check-in with your team to hear their thoughts and get feedback from the boots on the ground. And that's what we're going to focus on today, because what happens? Business picks up, the fires grow bigger, the team gets a little bit larger, and the daily and weekly checklists get thrown out for this almighty sales funnel. Because sales solves all, right? And yet you look up 5, 8, 10 years from your start and you barely recognize who you've become as a business. Or maybe scarier yet, you barely know the people you're working with, and they're just this cog in a wheel to get your revenue higher and higher and higher. So, how do we slow down a bit? How can we kind of push pause and step back and recommit to the simple things and reconnect with our team? Well, it starts with the lowly, but I'll call it almighty team check in. I want to give you a tool that will allow you to begin connecting with new hires from day one, from the moment they step in your office, and also build a platform to reconnect with anybody who may have slipped through the cracks on your team. So here's where I would start. Use this as a starting point and add to it if need be. What we found is that these questions asked consistently and also answered truthfully, I would add, will provide your team with both connecting points and clarity as you scale and grow. Now, know that this process, it's simple, guys. It's not fancy. There's not a lot of big words or confusing questions. It's simple, and it's meant to be simple so that you can do it over and over and over again and not have to wonder if you're doing it right. Yes, it's effective. It's been tested for the last 5 years on hundreds of businesses. And so before you roll your eyes at the end of this call and you go, that was it? I'm going to ask you to try what I'm about to share with you for 3 to 6 months and see where it leads before rendering a verdict. So first, I want to start with the rhythm of these check-ins. So we prefer to have them 2 times monthly, twice monthly. Scott just came out with an incredible podcast, right? Talking about check-ins, the why behind it, and some of the actual data points there of businesses that have grown because they've implemented check-ins. So I don't want to spend too much time on that. You can go back and find that at our My Business on Purpose podcast. But schedule dates out and then commit to making sure that they happen. Occasionally, I'll allow them to happen monthly, depending on the size of the team, but that needs to be the absolute minimum. And in fact, data shows that monthly actually deteriorates from the effectiveness. It actually pulls away from the effectiveness. So that's why I push for 2 times monthly. Hopefully, it's only a short while. If you have to go to monthly, we prefer twice monthly. So let's get into the actual questions to ask here. Number one, are there any areas where you've seen us live out our mission, vision, and values? If you know anything about BOP, you know we are fanatics about mission, vision, and value. It's always the starting point. Are we headed where we want to go? And are we holding to the things that make us unique? And does the employee, are they actually aware of those things? If not, that's okay. It's a great opportunity to retrain or maybe train for the first time on that stuff. If they can't tell you your core values, that's probably an issue, right? Just as important, though, is can they actually look out and see those things and begin to live them out in the day-to-day operations of your business? Mission, vision, values, they're important. Ask about them and track them. And if for a few months you don't see one lived out or mentioned, then maybe it shouldn't be a core value. Or maybe you should double down on training your team how to live that out in real time. Say one of your core values is 5-star customer service. And you say, hey, when was the last time you felt like you showed 5-star customer service to one of our clients? If they don't have a time in the last month or two where they can say specific times where they've lived that out, it's not a good core value for you. So come up with new opportunities, come up with ideas for how to live that out in real time, or get excited because, yes, we're living that stuff out and we know exactly who we are. So question number 2, what are you seeing? It's purposefully a broad question. We want this intentionally open-ended question to be able to capture their eyeballs. It sounds super weird, but you are not on every single job. Hopefully not, at least. You also have seen things done for one specific way for a very long time, and that's your way. So allow new employees who are coming in to ask, why are we doing it this way? Have we ever thought about doing it this way? Allowing them just a chance to kind of spitball and ask questions and knowing that, hey, we only get their fresh eyeballs for so long before we lose their perspective. So let's ask this regularly and let's listen to what's said. Here's the flip side of that. It also allows you to get them talking and just break through some of the initial awkwardness of that check-in, right? There's nothing more awkward, and they're going to come in with some fear of that. All right, we got this one-on-one. No, break through the ice by just getting them talking and getting the conversation moving. So what are you seeing? Third question. Any questions on your job role? Now, this is assuming that you wrote one down. Physically have a job role written down and recorded, which you absolutely need to do prior to any hire. Stop listening right now. If you don't have job roles for people, stop. Go write them down, get them communicated to your team. But for some employees that have become your kind of utility knife, right? This provides valuable time to listen to their frustrations, listen for any areas that they need help or need more training, and then lean in with them to work towards that success. You can use this time to discuss how to prioritize time and maybe even give them some thoughts on their weekly schedule. You want to give them the goalpost for their role and make those roles crystal clear. And if not, you just won't feel the freedom to hold them accountable to that standard if they're being pulled every little direction. Please, please, please don't skip this one. Or honestly, don't even fear this one because it provides necessary clarity to keep every role from just drifting to something that doesn't matter. No, it helps you keep them laser focused on what you're asking them to do. All right, we're going to keep moving. Question number 4. What blind spots are we missing? And any new ideas? This is kind of a 2-for-1, right? We need to know our blind spots and need to be able to react quickly when they pop up. Imagine the way your employees would respond when they hear that you want to know what they're seeing in the field and want to work on any blind spots. Imagine the trust that would be built when they're asked for new ideas to grow and improve. Guys, that builds a healthy culture that draws people in instead of just asking them to blindly follow the ways you've always done it. No, it shows a humility. It shows a growth mindset from you as the leader. 2 things that are incredibly important that you want to develop in your own team, right? Humility and a growth mindset. And it invites your team to innovate, to have that growth mindset and humility, and opens up a doorway for you to be able to challenge them and have hard conversations. Because if they can say things to you, you can flip that right back around. And we'll get to that here in just a second. Because if the business isn't too proud to be challenged, the employee shouldn't be either. Blind spots, new ideas. Write that down. Question number 5. Lastly, I want you to ask, hey, is there anything you need from me? Employees are terrified to ask for help, terrified to let you know that there's a lack of clarity or maybe, God, I'm just drowning in this. And oftentimes they're terrible to ask you to retrain on something because they just feel exposed and when held accountable to something that they're frequently ill-equipped to handle, right? That's our fault from a training perspective. It produces fear, it produces shame, and it produces discontentment. We can do better than that, y'all. We can absolutely do better. This is you offering to help them accomplish the job role that you've given them, and it's you being invested in their success. Now, here's where I'll pull back just a little bit, and I will add one caveat. Employees can really quickly try to put things back on you, and occasionally you'll need to say no to a request or explain why you can't do something. But that's the communication process that's so meaningful in the check-in. If you say, hey, here's why I can't do that because I'm focused on business development and out getting the next job, let me help you, let me equip you. It's a conversation because this is the crux of the issue. When there's a lack of communication, the mind makes things up. Please write that down. When there is lack of communication, the mind makes things up. And if we're honest, when we make things up, it's typically not based in reality, and it's typically far worse than reality. Make sure you're communicating efficiently, correctly, and maybe even going a little past what is necessary. All right, so I said 5 questions there. I'm going to hit those back real fast. Any area where you've seen us live out our mission, vision, and values? Second question, what are you seeing? Third question, any question on your job role? Fourth, what blind spots are we missing? Any new ideas there? And then 5, is there anything you need from me? So you've got those 5 questions that we hit every single week if you can, every other week ideally, once a month at the absolute minimum. But I want you to end every check-in with one very specific thing. I want you to end by saying, okay, here's what I see and here's what I need from you. You've given them their chance to talk. You've heard, you've listened, you've written stuff down. Here's what I see and need from you. A time for you to share what you're noticing in them and their role. Not just sweeping things under the rug for the last 8 to 12 months and then pulling it up to air the dirty laundry once a year at performance reviews. Anybody ever done that? Somebody looks at you and you go, wait, it's December. Why didn't we talk about this in March when it happened? Well, it's because we're afraid to have these conversations and course correct along the year. No, regular course corrections to allow them to always know where they stand and how they're viewed. That is so freeing to your team to have appropriate communication and know exactly where they stand in their job role in your eyes. For you to be able to tell them both positive and negative feedback right? And quickly keep short accounts. It allows you to get things off your chest and not hold on for longer than a week or two. Trust me, there is so much freedom. There's so much magic in saying things quickly and having short accounts with your team. Just letting them go so that you can communicate. So tell them what you see in them. And if there's anything in addition that you need from them, and then let them go do their job. Now, Jesse's going to post a document with those 5 questions in the chat window. You can grab it. You can make a copy of it. It's amazing. Every time I do some check-ins with our team, what I'll do is I'll have a document with their name at the top. I write the questions down, and then the next time that I do their check-in, I literally am just taking notes on that document, and I have every single one of their check-ins documented on the same document. That way, it can serve as an HR document, right? If for some reason you have to terminate an employee down the road, this way there's a paper trail for you to follow. If the employee looks at you and says, hey, we never talked about that, well, you can fall back on your notes. They're time stamped and they show the conversations that you've had along the way. Obviously, I hope it never comes to that. And what we've actually seen is by implementing some of these check-ins, we can deal with things prior to them becoming a really big deal and maybe a fireable offense. But if down the road, you are covered if it does. So let's recap before we take some questions. Bi-weekly check-ins, ask your 5 questions, record the answers, and then tell them what you see and need. Then at the very end, schedule the next one and do it over and over and over again. I told you guys, I have been with BOP going on my 5th year now. I still answer these same questions every 2 weeks with Scott. I do it every 2 weeks. It's incredible. Some of our best ideas have come from check-ins with our team, and that's where we come up with new ideas. We keep short accounts, and that's why our team sticks around for a long, long time. Not just our new employees, but everybody gets a check-in. It's powerful. It gives me a voice. It gives us critical feedback on my role, building a healthy culture of accountability and connection that's, if we're honest, just hard to replicate otherwise. Guys, I don't know if I can say this enough. You deserve this as you lead your team. And your team deserves it for the effort that they put in to have a good relationship. Your clients will see the difference as the culture begins to improve, as the communication begins to improve. So here's what I'm going to do as a way just to thank you guys for making time for today. Before I open it up for Q&A, I have made 3 times available to meet and discuss what your most kind of nagging and prevalent employee issue is. No strings attached, just as a way to add value to your business and get to know you guys a little bit better. So the first 3 that sign up, here's my QR code right here. I've got kind of 15-minute meetings to discuss that. If you would like to hop on there with me, I would love to get you guys to get to know you guys a little bit better. And then we can talk for 15 minutes, dive in on that, implement some check-ins. You can take it to the bank. So here's the QR code, scan it, sign up on my Calendly link, and I will see you on that Zoom as soon as we get that Calendly link back from you. So all right, from here, I'm going to open up for questions for a little bit. I told you guys we would be out in 20 to 30 minutes. So why don't you guys drop those? If you want to come off mute, that's 100% fine. You can do that. Or you can also just drop those in the comments window down there. So go for it. What questions do we have? What frustrations do we have around check-ins? We got about 10 minutes for Q&A if we want to dive in. Anything out there? Anybody tried check-ins and they failed, or anything that, you've had some wins on some of this? Where are you guys at with this?
Yeah, so I'll kind of speak to this, Thomas, kind of what
Awesome.
you said a couple of minutes ago with, some of y'all's best ideas have come from check-ins. Kind of the same for us, it's kind of like y'all, we do the same exact questions every 2 weeks. And there's been a lot of very good things that have come up that we've continued to discuss. And there's a lot of different processes, documents, just different kind of ideas that we've had that have really kind of spurred and grown and been really good for us.
Yep. I love it. I love it. I think, thanks for sharing that first, Jeremy. I love that kind of confirmation there. I would say those ideas, like we have started this new thing that we call our Wonder Wall, which is just funny. We're quirky in the way that we record things. And so ideas that come from that we're like, hey, we don't know what to do with that right now. We now have a document that we can go and then add those things to the Wonder Wall. We can bring them up regularly and say, all right, here's 5 good ideas that have come up in the last month. When we do our kind of 12-week plans, who wants to take this one and run with it? Who wants to take this one? Because what it can't happen is all flow back through me or Scott or Brent or, whoever, Sean, Patrice. Like, it's got to land somewhere, and somebody may be super passionate about it and want to run with one of those ideas. So a lot of that feedback that we get Absolutely. Got to find some place for it to land. So that's really, really great there. Brad, you had asked, do you handwrite the check-ins and then download it into the drive? I usually I start a folder with our coach's name. I open a document up, I write those questions in there, and I go ahead and copy and paste those questions about, 5 or 10 times down there. So then all I have to do is come back in, type the date at the top of that, and I just start typing in. So to me, it's a little bit better to do it that way. And the thing about Google Drive is it timestamps every time you're typing in there. So if an employee is like, hey, we never talked about that, I'm like, well, we actually did. You can look here, August 9th of last year, we had this conversation. We had it a month later. We had it a month later. I know some people that ask their employees to sign those, like they'll actually print those out afterwards as like, hey, you are affirming that this is the conversation that we had. That gets a little more corporate there, but it's also not the worst idea in the world. So, yeah.
And also too on that, Thomas, another thing that we do is kind of like that. We have a Google Drive for each employee. Like I have my own folder for check-ins and that. And then all we do is we just make a copy and there's one document for each check-in. So if you ever want to go back and be like, all right, for just say February 3rd, we talked about this. And then you can go through and be like, all right, it was also here. It was also here. What are we going to do about it?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. George, I saw a question for you. I've attempted this and just received some blank stares or shrugged shoulders in response. I'm curious, because I always do feel like the first time you do it just feels awkward. Like it doesn't matter. People don't know what to expect. They're like, am I in trouble? Is this just going to be, ripping me up left, right, and center? Have you tried it multiple times in a row? Because I think with frequency, they start to realize, all right, yes, I'm going to get asked this. Here's something I can look for to have an answer on some of this. I like that, sending the questions out 48 hours prior. Do you want to come off mute there and just explain a little bit of that, or is that pretty self-explanatory? Oh, okay. That's all right. No mic working there. I would commit to saying, like, you can share that with the team. I don't know how many employees you guys have, but I would just say, hey, guys, this is something I said this earlier. We're going to try for 3 to 6 months. I just want feedback from you guys. And so we're going to get in the habit of doing it. I want to know what you guys are seeing out there. I want to know what blind spots we have. I want to know what questions you have on your job roles, what you need from me, and how we're living out our mission, vision, and values. I think if you can dive in on those 5 questions and ask them consistently, it gets less awkward and they start to realize what they need to be looking for throughout the week. So that would be my encouragement to you there.
I missed a little bit at the beginning, but I wonder how you handle where you're meeting with one person and most of what they want to talk about is how another employee is, not hitting the mark, which in our case is true. Like we have an employee that's, one who is frustrated by the work ethic of another one.
Yeah.
Where her feedback would mostly be, what this other employee needs to improve. I mean, I guess, do you work hard to say, let's focus on you? And
yeah, I don't mind that coming up. I don't mind that coming up once or twice, but I will, like, if it's the third check-in in a row that they're bringing up a certain person, that's where I'll push back a little and just say, hey, here's 2 things that you brought up twice in our last check-ins. I want you to know that I am bringing that up in he or she's check-in. And so let's just trust me to handle that. Okay. We're going to give it some time. They've been challenged on some things. I appreciate you bringing that to my attention, but let's also focus on your job role, what you are seeing. And so I think that helps kind of realign some of that so that they're not constantly just, kind of outward focused on whoever else is the pain point. Does that make sense?
That does. Thank you.
Yeah. That's a great question though. Let's see. Jeremy in here said it took them about 3 months or so of being consistent to where it got out of that awkward phase. I would definitely agree. I have a trim carpenter and he laughed. He was like, my guys are going to think I am absolutely crazy. He's like, these are 55-year-old guys who just want to be left to do woodworking. And he started meeting with them on job sites and asking them questions. And they did, they got blank stares for the first month. He's like, man, we started getting some really great ideas and actually started building some ownership that we had been lacking because they felt like they had a voice for the first time. And they felt like they weren't just pushed off and, hey, you just stay in your lane and let me run the business, but they're invited into being a valuable contributor to the voice of the business. So I love that. Any other questions there? Awesome. Well, hey, I will stick around for 1 more minute or 2. Y'all are free to roll out at this point. We got out in a couple minutes early, so I'm excited for that. But I hope this has been helpful to you guys. Again, Jesse, will you throw that QR code back up one more time? And that way, if you guys want to schedule some time with me to talk through any employee issues, Or if you're just sitting there saying, you know what, God, we keep hearing stuff about BOP and want to learn a little bit more or whatever. This is stuff that we do for you guys. We come alive helping liberate business owners from chaos. It's what gets us out of bed every single morning. And so we would love to serve you, love to serve your team, and just figure out what that would look like, or just coach you and send you back on your way and say, good luck. We'll see you at the next masterclass. So if there's no other questions, I will let you guys get out of here. I look forward to meeting with those of you that have signed up, and we will look forward to seeing you on the next masterclass in May. So thank you guys so much. Take care.